Mr. President, I come one final time in support of Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation to serve as Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Democratic leaders did everything in their power to make Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation about anything except his judicial record and his outstanding academic qualifications. The Democratic leaders promised to oppose Judge Kavanaugh confirmation from day one and used every play in the book to accomplish that goal. Even though the Senate had access to more of Judge Kavanaugh's records than we've had for any other Supreme Court nominee, Democratic leaders tried to bury the Judiciary Committee in mountains of irrelevant paperwork. When routine process arguments failed, they resorted to outright character assassination of the judge. Their smear campaign featured baseless allegations of perjury and claims that as a teenager, he participated in gang rapes of women. I've been around long enough to see ugly left-wing smear campaigns against Supreme Court nominees, but this was beyond the pale, even beyond Judge Thomas and Anita Hill, and I was there. I'm encouraged that most of my colleagues had the courage to stand against the politics of personal destruction. Ignored in the media circus that the Democrat leaders created was Judge Kavanaugh's extraordinary record as a judge and also as a citizen. I've said from the day the President announced Judge Kavanaugh's nomination on July 9 that Judge Kavanaugh is quite possibly the most qualified person ever nominated to the Supreme Court. He has spent 25 years of his career at the highest levels of the government, including the last 12 years as a judge on the second most important federal court. Judge Kavanaugh's record on the D.C. Circuit has been remarkable, outstandingly remarkable. On a court containing some of the brightest legal minds, Judge Kavanaugh has set himself apart. The Supreme Court, in at least 12 separate cases, adopted positions advanced in Judge Kavanaugh's lower court opinions. As liberal law professor Amir wrote in the New York Times, quote, "Good appellate judges faithfully follow the Supreme Court. Great ones influence and help steer it. Several of Judge Kavanaugh's most important ideas and arguments have found their way into Supreme Court opinions." End of Professor Amar's quote. Judge Kavanaugh will not only bring his keen intellect and deep knowledge of the law to the Supreme Court, he will bring some other very important judicial characteristics as well. First among these is a proper understanding of the role of a judge in our constitutional system. He knows that a judge should interpret and apply law as written, not how he wishes it were written, because, as we all know, it's Congress's job to write the laws, not judges. He has explained in numerous cases that the fundamental goal of the separation of powers under a constitutional system is the protection of individual liberty. He has interpreted the Constitution according to text, history, and tradition, not his own personal views. And that is exactly the type of a person we need on the Supreme Court. Judge Kavanaugh has also demonstrated judicial independence and courage. As an example, in the 2 years after he was appointed to the D.C. Circuit by President George W. Bush, he ruled against Bush administration agencies on 23 cases. So don't let anybody tell you that he is obligated to a President Trump. We can expect that Justice Kavanaugh will be beholden to no one and nothing except the Constitution. Judge Kavanaugh also has a well-earned reputation for collegiality. He has an excellent relationship with all of his colleagues in the D.C. Circuit, and his judicial record demonstrates the same. Indeed, Judge Kavanaugh was in the majority in 97% of the cases that he participated in that D.C. Circuit. His Democratic-appointed colleagues were as likely to join majority opinions written by Judge Kavanaugh as his Republican-appointed colleagues were. He will bridge the divide in the Supreme Court. Judge Kavanaugh has also shown a dedication to public service, to mentorship, and to diversity. He spent all but 3 years of his legal career in public service. Judge Kavanaugh is a proven mentor to law students and young lawyers. Judge Kavanaugh has taught courses at Harvard Law School and other top law schools for many years. The Senate Judiciary Committee received a letter in support of his confirmation from these former students. They wrote, quote, "We will have differing views on political issues surrounding the confirmation process, but we will agree on one thing. Judge Kavanaugh is a rigorous thinker, a devoted teacher, and a gracious person," end of quote. Federal judges also play a very important role in mentoring the next generation of lawyers by hiring law clerks. Judge Kavanaugh has clearly taken seriously this mentorship role. His former law clerk submitted a letter to this committee strongly supporting his confirmation. I quote from that letter, "It was a tremendous stroke of luck to work for and be mentored by a person of his strength of character, generosity of spirit, intellectual capacity, and unwavering care for his family, friends, colleagues, and us, his law clerks," end of quote. One of the areas where Judge Kavanaugh has had a particular impact is his commitment to diversity. More than half of his law clerks have been female. When confirmed to the Supreme Court, his class of law clerks will be all female, the first time in the history of the Supreme Court. Judge Kavanaugh's female law clerk sent the committee a letter, and this is what this letter from the law clerk says, quote, "We know all too well that women in the workplace still face challenges, inequality, and even harassment. Among other things, women do not enjoy a representative share of prestigious clerkships or high-profile legal positions. But this committee and the American public more broadly should be aware of the important work Judge Kavanaugh has done to remedy those disparities. In our view, the judge has been one of the strongest advocates in the federal judiciary for women lawyers," end of quote. Well, as I think about history, it leads me to this. The confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh is particularly meaningful to me. 31 years ago, left-wing groups and their Senate allies fired the opening shots in the judicial confirmation wars. They engaged at that time in unprecedented character assassination against President Reagan's nominee, Judge Robert Bork. Since then, they have only escalated this war, slandering several Republican nominees to the Supreme Court and expanding their tactics to lower court nominees. So then, as history tells us, more than 3 decades later, left-wing groups and their Democratic allies in this body went back to the very same playbook. They tried the very same character assassination tactics against the person nominated to the very same seat that Judge Robert Bork was supposed to fill. They succeeded 31 years ago, but this time they failed. So I look forward to voting to confirm Judge Kavanaugh this afternoon and to greeting him as Justice Kavanaugh the next time I see him. I yield.